setting up the live stream right now, and then we'll get started. All right, so welcome everyone to our resuming of our Holy Land presentations. And so so let's see, about a year ago, or almost 2 years ago, oh, there's Diana. Okay, almost 2 years ago, it was in 2020, July or January, very end of January, the first part of February. I think the 28th through the 5th, 26th through the 5th, something like that. Anyway, there was about 5 of us who went to the Holy Land, and we got back right as all the COVID stuff was starting to hit. I remember when we were sitting in the Newark airport on our way back, seeing all these news reports about them starting to shut down travel between countries, and we were like, man, we got back just in time. And Judy this morning said she remembered that she was seeing people starting to wear masks, but she was like, why are they wearing masks for it? Well, now we know. So
but I remember we were sitting there and you were looking at your phone with the news, and said, boy, we got out just in time, because they had a news thing on where we'd been that afternoon with that big gold dome and they've been shooting.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There was a scuffle over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got about 2 weeks worth of presentations in, just like we're doing right now, and then we had to shut down for COVID. So we're starting over, and so we'll cover 1 day per session. And so we're doing day 1 today, and then this will last seven weeks. So it's a long time, but it'll go over the entire summer. And we'll have this, you can join us on Zoom, like you're doing now for some of you, or I'm also live streaming it. And the live stream, then you'll be able to actually watch. If you miss, you can then get on our YouTube page and you can watch it later. So it'll be archived on our YouTube channel. So if you miss one for some reason, you can't make it to either 10 a.m. or 7 p.m., you can still watch it. You just won't be able to ask questions. So that's where we're at. That's what we got. So I'm just going to open this up with a quick word of prayer and we'll get started, because we've got over 130 some slides to cover tonight. So let us pray. Gracious God, I just want to thank you so much for our time together tonight. I thank you for the blessing of this trip, and I just pray that our experience will be shared by everyone who joins us here tonight. Help us to grow in our faith as we experience the Holy Land through pictures and stories. And so for this we pray in Jesus' name, amen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you at home can see these pictures. We go. All right. So, Holy Land. All right, here we go. So here's a picture of Judy, Shirley, and Sharon and I. Nancy Miskey was the other one that went with us, and she flew out of Omaha, so that's why she's not in this picture. That was one of the things Judy had to remind me of this morning. I'm like, why wasn't Nancy there? Anyway, so yeah, this is at the Lincoln Airport. We're getting ready to fly out. This is in Newark, as we were waiting to board and head out to Israel. And I think it was like a 9 or 10 hour flight. It was really, really
11
long.
11 hours and 52 minutes.
11 hours and 52 minutes. Thank you. See, I knew you were here for a reason. All right.
That's probably about all I can.
I think it was longer on the way home, though. I think it was like 13 hours. We did, yeah.
Because I think we went this way and we came back, we went this way somehow.
Yeah.
If I remember.
So this trip was actually sponsored and put together by our conference and by our bishop. It was a trip designed for those who were newly ordained the previous year. And so he wanted to make sure that all the ordinands got a chance and opportunity to go to the Holy Land. And so then we got to sign up as tour hosts and invite people to come with us. And if we had at least 4 to 5 people sign up, then our trip was free. And so I didn't have to pay. I had to pay taxes on it though. So, but I didn't have to pay. So thank you, Shirley and everyone else who went on this trip. I got to go for free. So minus taxes. And so this over here, this is Jeff Getzinger. He's one of my clergy colleagues. He serves in Kansas, and I went through ordination with him and attended seminary with him. And there were several others there as well, but he just happens to be in the picture. So here we are. We landed in Tel Aviv, Israel, and we're coming down the escalator heading to customs. This is turning 180 degrees looking the other way as we're heading down in there. And just everywhere there was beautiful stonework and all the buildings and, mosaics. And of course, archaeology was, just a really big theme and everywhere we were at. Here was customs where we had to give our passports. This guy right here, I have no idea who he is, but he looks almost exactly like my brother-in-law. It's crazy. And he even wears his hat backwards like that. So here we are. We got past customs. We collected our bags. We're all gathering together, waiting for the tour company. And it was really nice because the tour company that we used, Educational Opportunities, they had guides there the whole time. They had representatives. They were guiding us everywhere we had to go. So there was I never felt unsafe on the trip. I always felt like we had somebody telling us where we needed to be. We weren't lost. It was very nice. Just that baggage claim area, heading out to the bus. So there was our bus. I don't remember how many people we actually had on the trip. I think there was like 30 of us or 35. And so here was the bus. We filled an entire bus though. And so after we got on the bus, it was like a 2-hour ride to Tiberias, which is where we stayed for the first couple nights. Tiberias is right along the Sea of Galilee. Here was inside my room. I'm assuming that everybody else's room looked very similar to this. We all had roommates. We shared. You could pay a little extra to get your own room, but they were limited. And I liked my roommate, but I wish that I had gotten the single room, just because as you get older, you like your privacy, and it's kind of nice to not have to share a room with somebody. But anyway, I know I'm a lot younger, but I am in my 40s, All right. Anyway, here we go. Here was the view from outside, or from our balcony. So we were quite a ways up, but it was a really beautiful view. And so I just point this out, that on all the door frames in Israel are these little boxes that contain scripture. And this is from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4-9, which says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them with you when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads." And then here's this: write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. And so that's what we see there.
All of that is written on that little thing there.
Well, I'm not sure if that's the actual scripture that's in there, but there's scripture in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, oops. Here we go. So here is the Sea of Galilee from our hotel looking out. This was on the morning of. So we got there really late, and then they said, try and sleep if you can. And we were pretty tired, I think. So I slept pretty good. And then we got up in the morning, and that's when we started our tour.
It was really neat. Got up the next morning and opened the curtains, and you're looking over the Sea of Galilee. And it hits you right then and there where you're at.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
But it was a beautiful morning. And so here's this boardwalk right along the Sea of Galilee, and it was pretty barren. There wasn't much there. Our tour guide, Nadir, he commented on how tourism was really kind of low during that time, and a lot of it had to do with the instability in the Middle East at that time, and well, just right now in general. And but you can just imagine this as kind of a, you know, a hopping place at nightlife, you know. Um, and in fact, one of these hotels, this hotel right here, was empty. There was nothing there. It was abandoned. I don't know if it was abandoned, but nobody was there. It was closed down. And so this big metal thing here, it's a big sign, but it has the outline of the Sea of Galilee, what it looks like, with Jordan River coming in and Jordan River going out. The Sea of Galilee, also called Lake Tiberias, Kinneret or Kinnereth, is a freshwater lake in Israel. It is the lowest freshwater lake on earth and the second lowest lake in the world after the Dead Sea, a saltwater lake. It has levels between 705 feet and 686 feet below sea level. It is approximately 33 miles in circumference, 13 miles long, 8.1 miles wide, and its area is 64.4 square miles at its fullest, and its maximum depth is approximately 141 feet. The lake is fed partly by underground springs, but its main source is the Jordan River, which flows through it from the north to the south and exits the lake at the Degania Dam. So there's some facts about the Sea of Galilee. And it's kind of hard to see in this picture with the lighting, but this was a digital display which showed the level of the Sea of Galilee at sea level at that moment. It didn't show up in the picture, so I don't know what it was, but I had that picture as a screen, as my background in my computer for a while. That's a beautiful picture. All right, so our first visit was to Caesarea, and Caesarea's claim to fame was that it was that in the time of Jesus, this was one of Herod the Great's biggest building achievements, along with the temple in Jerusalem. Herod, though a very cruel and jealous person who was responsible for the slaughter of the children under the age of 2 in and around Bethlehem, he was great, though, because of his massive building projects. In Caesarea, he built a large city and port in honor of Rome. The ancient city of Caesarea Maritima was built by Herod between 25 to 13 BCE as a major port. It served as an administrative center of the province of Judea, later named Syria Palestina in the Roman Empire, and later as the capital of the Byzantine province of Palestina Prima. Under the Crusaders, it became once again a major port and fortified city. And so this was our whole group, and we had to wear these little earpieces that looked like Bluetooth headsets. And so he could talk and we'd be able to hear what he said. They were very uncomfortable though. And whenever we get off the bus, headsets on. So that we could hear him. Anyway. So this is just kind of a model of the whole area. And so this was the fort. Here was the theater. And this was the palace. Herod's palace. Right here was chariot races. They did chariot races arenas here. And then here's the Mediterranean Sea. And we'll walk out to those areas. This here was a plaque, a replica of a plaque that's in the museum in Jerusalem that was found in this area. And it actually has the name inscribed of Pontius Pilate on that tablet. So it was an extra biblical source that actually proved that he was a real person. This is our tour guide. He was a Palestinian Christian. And of course, that's the Mediterranean Sea. And here you can see this is where they did the chariot races in this big open area here. And there was the seating so people could watch. Oops, let me go back here. So this was a big port city, and one of the big construction. This is easier to see. But one of the big construction things that he did was build this high wall. I mean, it was really tall harbor, and it's extended out both ways. And it was a ginormous construction project. And since then, of course, it's all gone down. But if I'm remembering correctly, once we got up to the higher places, you could actually see underneath the water some of the foundation stones that were out underneath here. But it was just this colossal thing. So I know I've shown this to some of you before, but any guesses what this is? Huh? Yep, it's a toilet, the Roman toilet. Yep. So in the days of in the Roman Empire, they were not concerned so much with modesty in the way that we are today. So they had a lot of public baths where people just got in the bath together. Nudity was not such a huge thing for them. So you can see here, this is the trough where the waste would be carried away with running water. And then here, of course, was where you would sit. And then here is a trough that also had running water in it. And there would be, according to our tour guide, there would be a sponge with a stick attached to it sitting in that trough so you could wipe yourself. It was shared. It was a shared stick. And so you would clean it off. You'd clean it off in this trough. Yeah. Can you imagine? Oh, gross. Maybe I could get on board with the whole, going to the bathroom in a public place like that, but having to share a sponge, I don't know about that. You can, maybe, I don't know, maybe you start carrying your own sponge with you. I don't know, but in a bag wrapped in something.
They had plastic bags.
They didn't have plastic bags. So here you can see a better view of the trough. And now we're down below. You can actually see kind of the curved in the area here where they actually ran the races. Here's a shot of what it would have looked like. Chariot races thrilled the crowds. The counterclockwise 7-lap race commenced at the starting gates, ended and finished line situated in front of the dignitaries, and at each end of the axial rib were the 2 turning points. Their sharp curves posed a major challenge to the skilled charioteers and the galloping horses. So that was kind of neat. It was just really cool to be able to see the ocean there, Mediterranean. All right, so here, this is what's left of Herod's palace, and it extended out even farther than this and would have been raised up quite a bit. The palace had a swimming pool. The sand only represents the sand only preserved its eastern wing, comprising a grand dining complex, a central hall flanked by 2 small rooms on each side, all richly decorated and provided with bathing and heating facilities. To the northeast, the staircase led to the upper story and the upper palace. A mikveh, a Jewish ritual bath, and a bathhouse were found next to it. And so here you can see some area for lounging. And then this is where the pool would have been, right in here. And then you can just imagine several stories up. There'll be a picture here in just a second. But these are really beautiful mosaic floors that were somewhat restored a little bit. Here, this is what it looked like. So each one of those little square areas and lounging chairs, and then the pool. It's kind of the outline. but it extended clear out here, and it was this big giant sign to anybody who would have been around there saying, look how important Herod was, right? He wanted people to see who he was, and he was a person of means when they showed up in that port. And he named it Caesarea in honor of Rome and Caesar. He knew who he needed to kiss, right? He knew whose rear end he needed to kiss. Yeah. All right, so the only remnants left from the theater of Caesarea are rows of seats, the orchestra, the stage, and scenophrons, which is the ornamental wall behind the stage. It just amazes me how long all this has stood there. Even though the ocean has kind of been, and the salt has eaten away at the stone. So this here is the part of the Crusaders fort. And so we didn't actually get to go in there, but we did drive by. So these are all taken from the bus. And I believe this was built on top of the old Roman fort. So the aqueducts, the Romans constructed aqueducts through their republic and later an empire to bring water from the outside sources into cities and towns. Aqueduct water supplied public baths, latrines, fountains, and private households. It also supported mining operations, milling, farms, and gardens. Aqueducts moved water through gravity alone along a slight overall downward gradient within conduits of stone, brick, or concrete. The steeper the gradient, the faster the flow. Most conduits were buried beneath the ground and followed the contours of the terrain, obstructing peaks where circumvented or less often tunneled through. Where valleys or lowlands intervened, the conduit was carried on bridge work or its contents fed into high pressure lead, ceramic, or stone pipes and siphoned across. So we weren't here very long. We basically were able to just get off the bus, walk around for like 5 minutes and get back on. But it was really cool. I mean, look how far back that went.
You know, for back then, that'd be a heck of an engineering feat, but
Oh yeah.
to get that water to drain from here, run through down there.
Well, it'd be a huge construction feat for us today, even. I mean, some of them stones are pretty good size. And I was reminded this morning that, of course, they used a lot of slave labor to put all that together too. So. All right, our next stop was Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is the location where Elijah slaughtered the prophets of Baal in 1 Kings chapter 18. And so on top of Mount Carmel is a Catholic religious order founded a monastery in 1209 named the Carmelites. In reference to the mountain range, the founder of the Carmelites is still unknown. And so this was a big monastery up here. It was pretty. But everywhere you went, there was basically a church on top of a sacred site. And so here's a statue of Elijah getting ready to slaughter one of the prophets of Baal. And this, of course, angered Solomon's wife, and so she went after him and tried to kill him. And that's where he was chased off to the mountain where he heard that still small voice of God. Not in the wind, not in the fire. This is the Jezreel Valley. And this was a huge trade route throughout the Fertile Crescent. And so you had Iran, modern day Iran, which was the Babylonia. And that would come up and around the Fertile Crescent. If you look on a map, it's a river valley area, and it would come down straight through Israel down into Egypt. And so it was a huge trade route. And I think one of the things that I was surprised about when I got to Israel was just how green and hilly it was. And I always imagined reading the Bible that it was just a desolate place of just rock and brown and flats like desert. And it wasn't anything like that. I mean, hilly, green. Granted, it was the rainy season at that time, but still, it was gorgeous. You get to learn, I mean, you got to see why it was called a land flowing with milk and honey. But the milk and the honey, this is an interesting fact that I didn't know about until this trip, was that the honey was not honeybee honey, it was date honey from dates. And that's what Nadir said. I don't know. Anyway, and then the milk was goats and sheep. Yeah. Goat milk. But it was really beautiful. Yeah. Here was a olive orchard, olive trees. I don't know if they call olive trees an orchard. I don't know. Anyway, when they're gathered together like that. Prayer garden. It was pretty, maybe not as pretty as ours, but maybe we're a little biased, huh? I don't know. So we left Mount Carmel, and we couldn't stop here because this was along the side of the road, but this was an empty tomb that was common, and this was an actual tomb of during the time of Jesus, but this, of course, wouldn't have been anywhere near where Jesus was, because this was in the northern part of the country. But this is a great example of what we read about in the Gospels of what Jesus's tomb might most likely look like, with the round stone that would have been rolled in front of the tomb. So we were able to they slowed way down just enough for us to take a couple pictures, and then we were back off again. So then our next stop was Megiddo. Megiddo became an Israelite city sometime between the 10th and 9th centuries BC, and functioned as an administrative center for the fertile Jezreel Valley. Sometime later, a massive wall and a monumental city gate were built. According to one opinion, the gate dates to the reign of Solomon in the 10th century BC. Other scholars postdate the gate to the reign of either Ahab at 9th century BC or Jeroboam II at 8th century BC. And so this is actually called Tel Megiddo, and Tel means hill. And so you can see the hill area here. But the interesting thing about this is that this is a man-made hill. This is not a hill that was natural. And it was man-made because, as we'll get to a little bit later, there were 30 different settlements built on top of one another over 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. Because they didn't come through like we would today with big heavy equipment and remove the buildings that fell down. They would just level the area and build on top. And we'll see that even more starkly shown in when we get down to Jericho, and we see some of that, because Jericho is one of the oldest cities in the world, over 10,000 years old, and so continually inhabited. So when we were there, I was at the time still trying to stay on keto, so I didn't eat lunch with everybody. While everybody was eating lunch, I actually walked up on top and spent a little bit more time on top and took some more pictures. It was really neat up there. And so here's the gate. Here's the city gate. And it looks way different than what you might expect an ancient, gate to look like in a fortified city. I think, at least for me, when I think of a city gate, I think of, like a drawbridge and a big metal gate that comes down, but that's not what this was. And you can see kind of in here, these were little recessed rooms, and there were several of them here. And this is where in ancient Israel, that's where most of the business would take place. That's where they listened to arguments between folks, where the judicial stuff happened at the city gates. This is where if you needed something to be heard by others, an agreement between people, you did it down at the city gates. So this was really a busy place to be. And so that when this was excavated, they've been kind of working slowly on trying to restore some of this stuff. And so here, this is inside one of the little alcoves, and you can see this wood beam. Below the beam is what it looked like when they first started excavating, and above the wood beam is the restored section of the gate. Yeah, this little sign here says restoration line. It's kind of hard, you can't even hardly tell the difference, can you? So then they have these really nice pathways that like clear up here. So here's the Jezreel Valley. And the reason I took a picture of this road was because even though this road right here is concrete and asphalt, this is actually right over the top of the ancient merchant road that went through this area. Still in use today. These are the northern stables. It's kind of hard to see where these would have been the stalls in here. And you can kind of see the troughs where they would have watered. I got a better shot in the southern stables here in a minute. Another shot of that road.
Out in that field, is that rose or something planted or?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was though. Yeah. So this deep section in here was dug out by the University of Chicago's expedition in 1925 to 1929. And it provides a unique glimpse into the nearly 30 settlements built one on top of the other at the site. Due to the unique continuity of its occupation from Neolithic period through the Persian period and the scope of its excavations, Tel Megiddo is considered the cradle of biblical archaeology and the laboratory of modern research methods. Excuse me. So there's just layer upon layer upon layer of civilizations there. And so I just point you to this round altar-like structure here. This area served as a focus of worship for over 2,000 years, from the early Bronze through the Iron I period. The University of Chicago excavation section revealed a series of temples built one on top of the other. The Megiddo expedition, led by a team from Tel Aviv University, uncovered an additional temple unique in the Levant in its monumentality and the thousands of sacrificial animal bones found in and around it. This here. Just more ruins. I think these were what was left of storage facilities where they stored supplies, if I'm remembering right. So I don't know if you can tell in this picture, but this is a metal frame of a horse. And so here would have been a feed trough, a manger. And the southern stables, so this is the southern stables, 5 units could accommodate 150 horses. As in the northern complex, each unit consisted of a rectangular building divided into 3 sections by 2 rows of alternating pillars and troughs. It seems that the Northern Kingdom established a major horse breeding and training center at Megiddo in the 8th century BC, and this was apparently one of the reasons for its prosperity. Assyrian records from the 9th and 8th centuries BC praise Israel's skill in chariotry. So this one's a little bit easier to see the troughs and where the horses would have been. And this is the center part. So this here was the water supply for Megiddo. And so you had to go down these stairs and get in there. And the interesting thing about this was that our tour guide said that in previous years, they used to be able to take tours down inside there because they had been suffering from droughts for quite a while. When we had gotten there, the drought had pretty much ended, and they'd had a lot of water. And actually, the water level of the Sea of Galilee was up, and so the whole area under there was flooded. And so he wasn't able to take us down there. But I did get some pictures of it. And so some of the information I found on this says the problem of supplying water to large cities is a serious issue even in times of peace, and it can become acute at times in siege. Megiddo's main water source was located at the foot of the mound beyond the city's fortifications. In order to ensure access to the spring from within the city, a hidden gallery was built on the slope of the mound in the 10th century BC. This gallery was later blocked and replaced by the elaborate water system which remained in use in the Assyrian city of the 7th century BC. I think it would have been cool to go down there. I don't know how many of us would have been able to do the hike though. All right, so after we left Megiddo, the next place that we went to was Sepphoris. And in late antiquity, it was believed, Sepphoris was believed to be the birthplace of Mary, mother of Jesus, and the village where Saint Anna and Joachim are often said to have resided, where today a 5th century basilica is excavated at the site honoring the birth of Mary. Notable structures at the site include a Roman theater, 2 early Christian churches, a Crusader fort, partly rebuilt by Zahir al-Umar in the 18th century, and over 60 different mosaics dating from the 3rd to 6th century. This was also the place where Joseph and possibly Jesus likely would have worked as carpenters. So Nazareth was just a really small village, and a lot of scholars believe that it was unlikely that there would have been much work in Nazareth for a carpenter. And I think Nadir was talking about how even the word carpenter translated in the scripture could have also meant stonemason, because there's a lot of, I mean, as you'll see in all the construction, it was all stone. And so Sepphoris was the capital of the Galilee at the time. And so there would have been a lot more work here. And I think he said, I'm trying to remember exactly how long, but they had people who had actually walked from the ancient city of Nazareth to Sepphoris. And it was just a couple hour walk or something like that. So they could have easily done that. So here's the theater. And you can see it went clear up here. The Roman theater was built in the late 1st or early 2nd century, carved into the bedrock on the steep northern slope of the hill. Its diameter is 72 meters and it seated 4,000 people. Rows of seats constructed on the hewn bedrock were robbed in antiquity. The lowest 3 rows are partly reconstructed with original stones. So you can see up here they unreconstructed, and down here where they've done some of the reconstruction. And these steps were steep.
Were
Like,
were they pretty high steps?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Farther parts of ours.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Those were like taking 2 of our regular steps. Old buildings and ruins. But you can even see like in here and down here, they're just sitting water. I mean, we never really got rained on hard, but there were times when we got sprinkled on, especially that first day. So here's that Crusader fort. And we got to go in there. So we're inside. So I wanted to take a picture of this. This is what's called a triclinium. You can see the 3 sides here. And then below with these mosaics in the middle. A triclinium is a formal dining room in a Roman building. Diners would recline on these surfaces in a semi-recumbent position. The 4th side of the table was left free, presumably to allow service to the table. Usually the open side faced the entrance of the room. In Roman-era dwellings, particularly wealthy ones, triclinia were common, and the host and guest would recline on pillows while feasting. And so part of the reason I wanted to show this was because it's believed that that is actually what the Last Supper would have looked like, because they would have gone to an upper room of likely a wealthy person and used their space, and they likely would have sat in a triclinium seating arrangement and kind of facing each other. And there's evidence for that, like in the Gospel of John, where it says that the disciple whom Jesus loved leaned back into Jesus and they started having a conversation. It would have made sense if that's how they were seated, leaning on one elbow, kind of eating their food on a. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But those mosaics were really pretty. Here's kind of a little bit better visible look of it. And they even had these little corner deals to kind of mark where the lounging seats would have been, you know. Put furniture here. Here's a picture of what that might have looked like. And so you can see the servers would have come in and they would have served from the inside and not reached over the people who were reclining and eating. And this was just, you can see the mosaic walkways. Now we're back outside, just walking through the grounds. So everything was just stone. And that was something if I'm remembering right, that our tour guide said that it was more likely that Joseph was worked with masonry, with stone, because wood wasn't as common and it was more expensive. And though wood was used for like furniture, it wasn't necessarily used for houses. And it's not that he couldn't have used wood and that he couldn't have been a furniture maker or something, but
Doesn't the word carpentry, if we really dig into it, mean building?
yeah. Well, I don't know.
So, I don't know, it seemed like I looked at it
Yeah.
after we got home. It seemed like if you got down into a lot of different definitions, it was building was also almost like a synonym.
Could be.
So that
Yeah.
would indicate.
So if you remember that earlier description, it talked about like 60 plus mosaic floors in Sepphoris were found. You can just see them all here. Now this road was really cool because this road, the stone road, which led up to the bus, it was the actual stone road during the time of Jesus. So, the Bible doesn't say Jesus was ever here, but if this was Mary's hometown and if Joseph worked here, there's a really good chance that Jesus likely visited Sepphoris at one time or another and walked on this road. And so that was one thing that our tour guide would always say, we don't know for 100% certainty that Jesus stood here, but if not here, then how far, right? But it was really kind of cool to walk along that. There was another road, and I don't think I got this picture in here, but you can kind of see where they're walking over here. I have another picture somewhere that has a good angle, and you can actually see wagon wheel ruts in the stone. So you can just see how many carts had gone through there over the years. It was really neat. Many public buildings and houses of wealthy families were decorated with mosaic floors. A mosaic floor was made of very small cubes of stone, glass, or tile laid in the wet plaster, according to a pattern outlined in advance. The designs were most certainly selected from standard sets. The more the mosaic maker wanted his work to appear like a painting, the smaller the cubes had to be. For a variety of colors and shades, artists used stones from various quarries, fragments of ceramics, and even glass. All right. So I used Canva to make this presentation, and I learned that they have a 100-slide limit. So I got to open up part 2. Just a second here. Okay. This more mosaic flooring. This one is really pretty. So after here, we left and we headed over to Nazareth. And on our way, we saw a bit of home. Kentucky made its appearance in Israel. All right, so this is Nazareth, and we're at the Church of the Annunciation. The Church of the Annunciation, sometimes also referred to as the Basilica of the Annunciation, is a Catholic church in Nazareth in northern Israel. It was established over the site where the Catholic tradition holds to be the house of the Virgin Mary, and where the angel Gabriel appeared to her and announced that she would conceive and bear the Son of God, Jesus, an event known as the Annunciation. Christian tradition has held that as a structure was commissioned by Emperor Constantine, whose mother, Saint Helena, helped found churches commemorating important events in Jesus's life. So after Constantine was converted to Christianity, in which point he made Christianity the religion of the empire, bringing it out of a lot of its persecution. His mom was a very devout Christian, and she wanted to go all throughout the Holy Land and pinpoint all of the places that were significant to the faith. And so she would go and she would find all the places that the people who lived there were venerating, who were lifting up as the locations like of Jesus's birth, where he was buried, where he was born. And so all of these different places, and then she would commission a church to be built on top of it. And so this was one of them, the Church of the Annunciation, the birthplace. And then there was, or no, sorry, the Annunciation. Then there was the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, which is where he was born. And then there's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is the tomb. And we visited all those places, so we'll have pictures of those later. Some version of it, it was known to have still been around in existence around 570 AD. The second, so the original church from Helena was around until 570 AD. The second church, though, was built over the ruins of the Byzantine era church during the Crusades. Following the conquest of Nazareth by Tancred in 1102, the Crusader era church was never fully completed. In 1260, Baybars and his Mamluk army destroyed the church during their attack on Nazareth. Emir, and I'm going to butcher all these names, granted the Franciscans permission to return to Nazareth and the church ruins in 1620, at which time they constructed a small structure to enclose the Holy Grotto that is venerated as the House of Mary. In 1730, Dahir al-Umar permitted construction of a new church, which became a central gathering place for Nazareth Latin community. The church was enlarged in 1877. The old church was completely demolished in 1954 to allow for the construction of the new basilica. The new basilica was designed by Italian architect Giovanni Muzio and built by the Israeli building firm Solel Bonet during the years 1960 to 1967. So really, this basilica that you're about to see really isn't much older than this church. So the chief engineer at this project was Ing Shlomo Lapatin Aluf. Anyway, who was dedicated to the basilica building process for more than 10 years. So we were told by our tour guide that pretty much any new construction in Israel had to be built kind of following a similar style, and they had to use this same kind of stone. And so everything is basically using this same kind of stone in its construction. But it is a gorgeous church. And we had members of our group led devotions at several different stops along, and this is one of the places we had a devotion to. These were the big doors that enter in. That was the ceiling. I thought that was beautiful, mosaic ceiling. So here we are, entered the church. And down in here, where you see this line of folks walking by, this is where the grotto is, where the Catholics hold that this is the place where Mary had the visitation by the angel Gabriel. So here you can kind of see inside. It wasn't too busy when we went to visit, but you can see this old cave. Here's the five of us. So all throughout these old churches like this, they had these little mini chapels that were inside all along the perimeter. And I don't know if they actually worship there or not. I don't know, but it was. This was on the second level up, and they were actually having a worship service in here. Imagine worshiping there every Sunday. And then they have these mosaics depicting some of the life of Jesus. Jesus and his disciples. Here's the woman washing Jesus's feet with her tears and hair. This one here was kind of interesting, and Nadir pointed this out. This was one of his favorite pictures or mosaics, because usually when we see pictures of Jesus, we see him depicted as kind of this meek, maybe, I don't know if frail's the right word, but he doesn't seem super strong, right? But here he is, young, strong, he's got a sheep over his shoulders. He's in charge. I just thought this was a really cool nativity set. In some ways, it didn't seem to fit in with the rest of the beautiful stone work. And this was kind of it was a pretty nativity set, but it looks handmade, None of those straight lines like the rest of the building. And so this here is a Jerusalem cross. And this was pretty much, Can you all on Zoom still hear? I hope. Okay, you're still on.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. I'm showing that my camera lost connection. So as long as you can see the pictures and you can hear, we're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So this is a Jerusalem cross. And the Jerusalem cross shows the four corners, northeast, southwest. And then the little four crosses in the corners represent the spreading of the church from Jerusalem to the four corners of the world. Here are the actual ruins of the ancient city of Nazareth, the small little village where Jesus was from. In some ways, I kind of hate the fact that they built churches on top of these places because, I don't know. But it was kind of neat. So this was old Nazareth, and then here is modern day Nazareth. So Nadir, our tour guide, he's like, so there are a lot of Christians in Jerusalem or in Israel, but he says that the numbers have been declining every year. And he said, with the exception of two places, Nazareth and Bethlehem. And so he said there's a large Christian population in Nazareth. And so here you can see there is a Christmas tree.
Oh.
Yeah. And this was we made it back to the hotel. This is where we got to eat. And they put, so they had a lot of different buses there at the hotel. And so they could distinguish who was who. And so we could sit together. We were the white bus. And so this is how we designated. And the food is really pretty good. They had a lot of, you didn't like the food? Oh, they had a lot of olives and cheese and fish. But they had other things. They had some pasta and
The bread was excellent.
and wonderful bread.
And their gelato was really good. I ate bread and gelato.
Did you eat bread and gelato? And but the spices were different.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah. And they, anytime you eat new food, it kind of messes with your tummy a little bit. But yeah, but it was, I think most of us were used to the food by the end of the week. I don't know.
None of us wasted away, that's for sure.
No, none of us wasted away because it was all served buffet style. So you could go up and eat whatever you wanted, as much as you wanted.
They didn't know how to cook eggs though.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't you see that?
I don't remember.
Well, they had very sloppy scrambled eggs. and
Oh,
then they
yeah.
had raw eggs on top.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, the big yellow.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. I had it once. That was-
Yeah.
Well, I found the eggs were a bit runny, but I have just attributed that to the fact that when you cook that many eggs at one time, it's hard to get the moisture out of it. But I don't know. Anyway, it was good food. I didn't suffer for
The
food.
bread though was absolutely delicious.
That bread was good,
Wow, yeah.
and the desserts were good.
Yeah, the desserts were good.
They had tables of cakes and gelato and ice cream, and it was really good. All right. Well, any questions? That's it. That's the last of my slides.
Yeah.
I followed you pretty good. Mine.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised that I followed that.
Let's see, Pastor, did you take these all with your phone?
Yes.
Okay, and how about you show them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one starts with Capernaum.
Um, yes, I think that's next. That'll be next week. Yeah, I think so.
It's okay, they'll be flipped around.
Oh, what the heck happened here? I don't know.
I can see you now. I couldn't before.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. We can hear you all along, but
All right. Then we're okay. Well, now you can see me, not everybody else. Anyway, so any questions? Any other thoughts? Otherwise, I'm done.
thank you.
Okay,
Very
good deal. So next week we'll talk about day 2, and so I'll have some more facts and stuff for you guys. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I said, this will be on our website. So, or I mean, on our YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch any of it. So, all right. Bye.
Bye.